Thank you for joining us today. If you are not an ATA member, please consider joining at https://atalink.org/become a member. The views expressed in this presentation are those of the speaker and do not reflect the official policy or position of the United States Air Force, the Department of Defense, the United States government, or the Airlift Tanker Association. Please take advantage of the question and answer feature in Teams to submit your questions anytime during the presentation. There is no need to wait until the end of the presentation portion to submit your questions. The earlier we get your question, the more likely we are to get to it in the time allotted. Today, we are privileged to have an amazing panel joining us. Colonel Corey Simmons and Mr. Joseph Dingman from Travis Air Force Base, with Civic leaders Ms. Sandy Person and Ms. Dana Lancelotti, will be giving us their perspective today on civic partnerships. Colonel Simmons has served in the Air Force for 23 years, holding a variety of positions in AETC, AMC, and Headquarters United States Air Force. Mr. Dingman is a 20-year Air Force veteran with AMC, HAF, and civilian experience. Ms. Lancelotti and Ms. Person have a combined 60 years in community partnership expertise, working on the East and West Coasts respectively. And now, without further ado, I will turn it over to Colonel Simmons.
All right, it's a good morning and at Travis Air Force Base, and a good afternoon to many of folks across the nation. It is much warmer in California today than it is for many of you, whether you're doing this in your stay-at-home status because of the weather, or you're getting to do this live at work, or for many of you that will get to maybe watch this after the fact. Thanks for taking a little bit of time to talk about a subject that that many of us, specifically us in uniform, haven't honestly put a lot of thought into. Especially if you're a junior member of ATA, for our lieutenants, captains, and majors, and our junior airmen and NCOs, you kind of hear words civic leader and honorary commander and how the civics can help solve problems, and you're like, I don't know how to do that. That sounds hard. Although that's a wing commander thing, and that's the only person that has to deal with that or think through that. What I hope to be able to show, and the team that helps to be able to show to this today, is this is something that you can start yesterday. You can definitely start cultivating relationships today, and then as you transition into many more of your jobs kind of throughout your career, maybe this is just yet another arrow in your quiver to be able to solve some of problems from a different point of view. So I'll take just a second to kind of highlight who we have with us so you kind of know. And then, because I like to preach like a good Baptist preacher, I'm going to tell you exactly how we're going to do this, for how long we're going to do it, and then give you some opportunity to think about some questions. So to my right is Mr. Joe Dingman. Joe Dingman is a former Air Force officer himself. He was the commander of the B-liners here at Travis back in the day. He worked directly for the SecDef and the Office of Secretary of Defense Executive Services prior to retiring approximately 6, 7, 8 years ago. And since then has had a variety of jobs in both the private sector and business development, with venture capitalists, and with city management, as assistant city manager in Sassoon City. And to be fair, Travis Air Force Base stole him, like you read about, to become a newly minted position that my predecessor, Jeff Nelson, set up as the director of staff and executive director of Travis Air Force Base. It brings a unique perspective that allows some of the relationships to be cultivated much longer than just the wing command tour. To my left is the one and only Supreme Galactic Civilian of all of Air Mobility Command, Miss Sandy Person, and she's already blushing, which is exactly where I was kind of going for with that introduction. Sandy has been one of the focal point civilians for not only Travis Air Force Base, but for AMC, and she's been on the Chief of Staff Civic Leader panel for many years. For most of the civics who I know get to watch this, Sandy is a go-to person to try to think through how this is done, not just to be able to get things done, but how to kind of get it done the right way. And I have thoroughly enjoyed the 7 months that I've had the opportunity to work with Miss Sandy. And then on the opposite coast, where it is much colder, much rainier, much snowier, is Miss Dana Lancelotti. And Dana is kind of the lead sled dog, for lack of a better term, for all things civics at Joint Base McGuire Dix Lakehurst. Again, an AMC civic leader that has brought a lot to this family the whole time. And so, what my intent is that I'll take about 4 or 5 minutes here and just kind of give you from the military point of view why this civic thing is what it is and kind of why it works or how it can work and why you should care, right? That'll be the first part. We'll transition to Miss Sandy, who will talk a lot about starting but not just the business development part, but relationships and Congress and how to kind of get things across the line that civic leaders can help us do. And then Miss Dana will really talk about relationships and how those can be cultivated to not just for the betterment of the base, but for our airmen, and then kind of going into a bigger circle. And then Mr. Dingman will kind of bring it home with a unique perspective, because he's been a squadron commander that has an honorary commander. He's been an honorary commander helping to mentor other squadron commanders, and he is now full-fledged into the civic leader piece, where he's helping me, honestly, not manage, but helping lead some of this work to be able to get done. So that's the so what, and we hope to do all that in about 25 minutes to give you guys multiple times for questions, and we'll kind of go from there. So I got great notes that I really just want to start with. I just want to go with, who are they? What are they? Who needs to know about civics? What are they? Why are they important? And how do you utilize their talents, right? And so I'll start with, who needs to know about civics? I would love to tell you that every single airman in the Air Force should know about civics. And I actually do mean that to a point, right? I think that most of us realize that the civic leadership and civics across our bases will have a direct impact on the experience that our airmen have while they're living there, right? And so if the base and community, if the community is supportive of the base, then the airmen generally feel that relatively directly. Why I think you need to know about civic leadership specifically is, in like every organization, there are folks who know how to get things done, right? And kind of know how to navigate things that sound like city management and county supervisors and statutes and laws and all those things that I don't know if you've ever been trained on any of that in uniform. I never was. And what I found is, specifically as I got into squadron command, I was an OSS commander, which had touch points outside the wire of McCord at the time. My honorary commander, who was issued to me, right? I didn't get to pick who that was, right? Somebody had somebody volunteer, and I got to have that person. That relationship, he was a real estate agent. That guy knew everybody. Right, he knew every single person associated in Pierce County, and I would literally pick up the phone and say, "Hey, John, what do you think?" And very quickly, I had somebody else on the phone that could get somebody else on the phone that could help me solve a problem that nobody in uniform could solve. And many of those times for our squadron commanders, it's taking care of your airmen, right? Is really where they come into play. As I've become more senior, you want to advocate for the honorary commander program. You want it to be there. But for me, it's the civic leaders, right? And you'll know who they are because they'll present themselves. That they will, right? Those influencers know how to get on your radar. I have never met a one that their intentions weren't pure, that their intentions weren't trying to get things across the line. And all, honestly, I had to do was listen, right? All I had to do was listen and then try to take their strengths and talents, align with my strengths and talents, and try to move something across the line. So who needs to know? I say everybody, but as specifically for our officers and our chiefs, as you come up into that world, group superintendent, command chief, squadron commander, group commander, vice wing commander, and wing commander, this is a relationship you can't be afraid of. What are they? They are influencers, right? They are folks who have a Rolodex of contacts. They have context to problems that have preceded you as a commander that can help you build your situational awareness on how to attack a problem. But they can be normal civilians. They could be city management. They could be county management. They could be, honestly, they could be the military liaison to a congressman. Like all of these folks together are your civic leaders, right? And so knowing who they are and what they are, I think is really important. Why? I will say, because I mentioned it just a second ago, there are so many problems that we have in our Air Force that there's not one military person that can solve it, right? There are things that we could take to General Bibb or we could take to General Van Obost, and they would have influence, but they would not have necessarily the ability to solve it in a way that the rest of the community would be able to shake their head north-south that, yes, we want to get after it. And that's really what the civic leaders can do. And I have had the pleasure of working with a few in my career. A few that come to mind are Mr. Joe Leverett at Altus, a fantastic advocate for airmen on the AETC side. I had Mr. Mike Cooper while I was at Vance that had a lot of influence on the national scale, and I am seeing this daily with Miss Sandy and with Miss Dana, that they can help us get after some problems like spouse reciprocity and like schools getting better and like housing around the base, things that we don't have a lot of sway to make the community or influence the community to do anything. They can absolutely help us do that. And then the last thing I will say is how. How do you do this? Where does this even start? It's actually pretty simple. You have to be willing to have an uncomfortable conversation, right? Because you're going to have the very first conversation. You're not going to know how to do it. You're not going to know what to say. You're not going to know any of those things because honestly, we didn't train you, right? That's not a part of your training to be a commander or a chief in our Air Force. But you got to be willing to have a conversation, listen, and be able to take that data and context and decide which part of that do you want to try to move the ball forward with. What I'll tell you is that if you ignore it or if you don't engage, you will have missed a tremendous opportunity that the only people that honestly that will suffer are your airmen, right? Because the civic leadership has an opportunity and an avenue to help them that honestly you don't have, right? And so that's kind of from my point of view. I want to give us now kind of turn the camera over to Miss Sandy, the much more attractive and well-spoken portion of this panel. I'm going to get up so that Sandy can demask to talk to everyone. But thanks for the time, and I'm going to give it over to Sandy to kind of talk through what it really is like to be a civic leader.
Man, is he good. It is such a privilege to work with a team that Travis Air Force Base has here. Oh, man. Be your wingman anytime, sir. And thank you so much for this honor. And thank you, ATA. This is kind of a first. I have not, in too many years of doing this, ever seen a forum like this. So I'm super pumped to be here. Because my heart's beating fast, I'm going to look at some prepared notes for this, but then I really want to talk a cappella because we want that dynamic. We want your feedback coming at us and seeing how we can be better and serve this. And so thank you again for this tremendous, tremendous honor. People often ask how I got inspired to do this. And the truth is, my inspiration was born by you. It was born by all of your commitment and excellence and examples and your sacrifice, and your desire to serve inspired my desire to serve. And I was compelled, and that's just the truth. I often feel like I won the lottery. I hit the jackpot in getting to do what I get to do every day. I love this work, and we truly do get this best of the best coming within the Air Force. And I'm sure Dana is going to share her perspective of McGuire, but Travis has been the quintessential learning ground for me. Early on, I was completely green. And when I say green, I mean not blue. I did not know Air Force. So I was an economic developer, much like the real estate agent that Colonel Simmons talked about. I knew everybody. And I sure as heck knew Travis Air Force Base, which was our region's largest employer and 2 billion plus economic impact. I knew it was important, but I didn't know what the secret sauce of the Air Force was. So I happen to be a person that leans in when I'm intrigued and curious, and I leaned in big. I had a lot of people help me, and boy, I asked a lot of questions. So I want to thank everybody who's on this session or that whom I've known, because you have invested in me. I try every day to offer a good return on that investment and put what I've learned to good use. So what do we know? We know that less than 1% of our great nation takes the oath to wear the uniform. And it's our honor and our duty to share your story with everybody that we meet so that this nation gets it. It can understand all that sacrifice and all that excellence that you're bringing to our country's, our country's being. And like so many of my fellow colleagues who are on this call, Dana and I have built these incredible relationships with civic leaders. We all talk about how we can do this better, how we can work with each other to team and create that value. But our job is, and I'm going to lay the 4 things. It's first to understand what the heck, almost swore, sir, what the heck you need. We got to understand it first. So you got to trust us. You got to invest in us, and you got to spend that time doing it in order that we can carry forward. Second, advocate, leverage that voice, unify that voice, take it to Washington, take it to our local leaders, educate. That education key is so important, and it goes both ways. I need to educate you on the ways of this region, and you need to educate us on the things that you do. And lastly, it's partner and lean into that partnership. And that's where we've hit the gold mine here. That's what being a civic leader is all about. So just a little reflection. Today's Air Force is different than it was 5, 10, and 20 years ago. There's no question about that. And the fence lines are more fluid than they've ever been. Air Force leaders are now asking us to look into new ways that we can bring value, supporting quality of life for the military members and their families. Big issue. And we had to scale up and learn what that is and how do we bring value to that. How do we leverage the capabilities of our state and local government to help realize greater efficiencies and reducing costs? Congress has not been, continuing with the money coming at us. So we got to figure out new ways to bring that. And sadly, funding for installation infrastructure and maintenance has really taken a back seat in the past few years. Readiness is impacted by that infrastructure and that investment in it. So what are some of the challenges that we face to step up and influence? Well, the constant churn of installation leadership makes that tricky. Thank God. Thank God. Thank you, Colonel General Select Jeff Nelson, for listening to us, engaging with us. And thank you, Colonel Nelson, for, sorry about that, sir.
I'm better looking than Colonel Nelson. I'm the same.
Well, dance around that one. But thanks to Colonel Simmons, we have the quintessential perfect person in that place. He knows how local government works. He knows how we think, and he knows how the Air Force thinks. So this position should frankly be at every base. And it needs to be somebody that has that book of history and that knowledge to carry forward a lot of these initiatives. We have to better understand the often cryptic process around force structure and basing decisions in order to protect the current mission and jobs that we have. That's not always easy. We need you to help us inform on that. We prepare and advocate for new missions, yes, but we have to constantly be vigilant with the political winds that could generate new cost reductions or, force reduction, and that even potentially BRAC. So again, it's all about helping each other. It's essential essential. It's essential that civic leaders are collaboratives and that we all invest in the resources and programs to help us understand each other's problems and to really address those. It's that trust of addressing those so that we can enhance military value and the morale of our shared community. Working together is the way we move this forward. Back to you, sir, or back to Dana?
No, I got it. So back to me, and I'll jump in here for just 1 second. So thanks, Miss Sandy, for that. And so now I want to give some special attention to the we're the left coast. This is the right coast of our country. And Miss Dana, if you could please, floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. And I can't echo enough of what Sandy said. I mean, it is an absolute honor and a privilege to get to be here, but I know that we both represent a tremendous amount of amazing civic leaders around the country. And I am not by any means by myself over at JBMDL. We have a very vibrant and robust number of supporters of the Joint Base, and also military support organizations and business organizations and political representatives, elected officials and governments who support the base, which is an awesome, awesome place to be. So as far as the Honorary Commander Program is concerned, the civic leader engagement, I mean, we are here to bridge communication, to bridge connections, to share the story as so eloquently put by Sandy. We are a very unusual, I think, group of people who have had the opportunity to see and experience face-to-face things that most civilians will never see. And we don't take that lightly. So when we've been given the opportunity to cross through the barriers of the gates between the civic community and the military installations, we're able to gather so much information, and we really are trying to learn as much as we can. So when the new commanders come in and they need that consistency and they need that acclimation to the area, we are here to be able to share that information and make those connections. We also sort of, I feel, because I work with the only tri-service base in the country, which is really even more than that. Not only Army, Air Force, and Navy, and Marines, but also Coast Guard, Reserves, and Guard. We really have everybody out there. So we're sort of translators in a lot of ways. When you have new honorary commanders who are trying to get acclimated themselves, we can often act as effective mentors. We are those liaisons between the people who have never spoken the language of the military, don't know how to read the patches and understand the ranks and how to address military officers in the proper way. People are terrified in some cases, and Sandy and I have certainly dealt with that and tried to be helpful, as well as our fellow civic leaders that are there to guide and support the honorary commanders who come on board as new supporters. We also act as recruiters to those people. We know who the influences are in the area. We know the region, we know the state in many cases, and we know who you need to be connected with to get what you need done. I started out in the private industry all of my life, and then 7 years ago came over to work for the county government. So I am connected directly to the county commissioners. I work with the congressional representatives, with the elected officials around the state, and I'm in conversations about the military and about the Joint Base. And because of the experiences that Sandy and I have gotten to have, being expanded broader through the Air Mobility Command Civic Advisory Council, our perception of the military is so broad, and we have the wonderful, amazing opportunity to see the connection globally from what happens in our own backyard. So that's another thing that we're able to share with the public is, why do you need to care about the base that's right in your backyard? Why do you need to care? And from witnessing the economic impact Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst has a $7 billion impact on the state, and that study is actually outdated, so I believe it's a lot more at this point. But just to share that with the people who are stakeholders, the people who are influencers, and the people who can fight for what you need, that is a really important thing to express and to make clear. Having the opportunity to tell bosses, to tell employers who have the opportunity to hire veterans, transitioning military, to hire spouses, having the opportunity to engage those people with the base. We formed an organization, a military support organization, a few years back because we had a void over on the eastern side of the Joint Base. So Ocean County Military Support Committee was formed. And we were able to unify a group of people to join older organizations such as the Burlington County Regional, the Burlington Military Affairs Committee, which has been around for 30 years, supporting McGuire Air Force Base and Fort Dix. So there's a lot of that needs to happen. People can't work in silos. We have to work together. So we're able to connect the base to the organizations, whether they be chambers or military support organizations that are here for you. So as a marketing professional, because that's pretty much what my background has been through the years, I absolutely love to be a cheerleader, but I have to care about what I am selling. So my engagement with the base started 12 years ago, and the more I learned, the more I loved. And the people and the work that you all do and the sacrifice and commitment in your service is absolutely amazing. So to be able to share that and to excite other people to understand that there's so much more to what happens within the military installation than people would perceive and imagine, and to talk about not only global defense but also humanitarian efforts that take place, and the rapid global mobility that we've gotten to experience and witness through Air Mobility Command. It's a world that, as Sandy said, we are so incredibly honored and privileged to be a part of. So however we can serve you and however we can help to share your story, we're here to do that. I think I'm going to pass it back just because I feel like I'm rambling now, and I would like to hear what people might want to say in return.
I got your back, Miss Dana. And Joe's over here chomping at the bit. He's got a lot to say, right? Yes. So I want to make sure that we give that opportunity. So thanks, Miss Dana, for that, and Miss Sandy for your point of view. And now, I just to kind of put it all together, I want to ask Joe to kind of just talk through the experiences that he had a little bit as a squadron commander, then an honorary commander, and then now as the executive director, and kind of how this kind of ties together. And then we'll wrap up with a 2 or 3 minute closing comments, and then we'll go to question and answer.
All right. Well, thank you, Colonel Simmons, and to ATA, Team ATA. Thanks for the opportunity today to be able to take a couple minutes and talk to the ATA folks out there. And this panel right now, I couldn't be more blessed, more humbled to get to be a part of it. Dana, thank you. It's been great to be able to meet you through this process. And Sandy, I've known for about a decade. My time at Travis back and forth, and these last 4 years have been fantastic. And Colonel Simmons and I have a little tread time in the Pentagon and flying C-17s and that kind of a thing. So it's really been a blessing. But to Colonel Simmons' point, I took over as executive director and director of staff at Travis Air Force Base about 4.5 months ago. And it's very unique in the fact that typically it's just a director of staff civilian hat that you would wear. And there's a number of wing agencies that a director of staff runs. And at Travis, there's 24, but Brigadier General Select Nelson and Colonel Simmons saw a need to establish an office called the executive director. And really what that is civilian continuity and the Air Force leadership continuity that would transmit through senior leadership turnover on the active duty side of the house at Travis Air Force Base. And really why that's important, and it kind of goes back to the 3 things that Colonel Simmons wanted me to talk about, was commander perspective, honorary commander perspective, and people on relationships with the community and the civics. And so with that, I've got a commander's background. And so when I was a squadron commander, I wasn't quite as good as Colonel Simmons. I had three 3 honorary commanders in less than 2 years. I was deployed for a chunk of it, and I really didn't have a clue what the honorary commanders were supposed to be. Didn't get trained on it. There was somebody that showed up at my my annual Christmas party that I hadn't met before, and had a great conversation. She was a city manager of a small city here in Northern California, but I really didn't know what to do with her, and she didn't really know what to do with me. And we worked through that, and then I got another honorary commander and another one. But what it taught me was that there is importance of relationships. When we invest in things, when you're a commander, you kind of need to know, hey, what's my role? When I have an honorary commander, what are the expectations? And then how do we get the honorary commanders up to speed? And I will tell you, when I came back this time, what our public affairs team has done with the honorary commander program, getting our commanders smart and getting our honorary commanders smart, doing a boot camp, doing a quarterly, they do tours all over the base once a quarter. And they also established the honorary commander mentorship council, where they have the most senior honorary commanders that have kind of graduated. There's a council, I think, of 5 right now. They kind of mentor the new honorary commanders that come on board. And we're developing a program right now for our commanders before they come into command, where they're going to get a little bit on civics. They're going to get a little bit on what an honorary commander is and what that relationship should look like. And the only reason why some of those things happen is because we have different perspectives. And kind of the perspective that I had as a young commander, and the things that happened that were great, and the things that happened that weren't great, kind of helped shape some of that, and just some of the conversations that I have with our PA team, and then honestly with Ms. Sandy and with all of us, our senior honorary commanders, so that we can develop and get that right. Because the important piece here is developing our commanders to understand the importance of really what's going on outside of the gate, right, of the base. We do a really good job internally understanding what's happening inside of the base, but commanders, a lot of the times, what's a county supervisor? What do they do? What's a city manager? What's their role? What's the difference between a mayor and a city manager, an implementer and a policymaker? Those kind of things are really important. And kind of on the back end, right before I took this position, I had a chance to spend almost 2 years in city government in an executive position. And that really kind of rounded it out for me, because not only did I get smart on the civic and the municipal government side of how things work in this community specifically, but it gave me an opportunity to really start developing some relationships. And so it gave me a unique perspective, especially as I sit in my chair as the executive director, trying to support Colonel Simmons and the group commanders, and then the civics like Sandy here. I've got that unique perspective where I can connect the dots. I've got the relationships and the conversations that start with Colonel Simmons when there's tough conversations about spouse reciprocity, wind farms, affordable housing. I can keep those conversations, and those credible relationships are built so that when the next wing commander and group leadership comes in, we don't skip a beat. We actually accelerate through it. So that's what I hope to bring to this role. I've been very fortunate. I'm so thankful to get to be here at Travis. Like Sandy, I couldn't be more grateful and thankful to get to be at this base, get to be with these airmen, and more importantly, with this community. And I know, Dana, you have got the same perspective out on the East Coast, but just really blessed and thankful for the opportunity to get to serve again, even though it's in a suit. Happy for that. And so just thank you for the opportunity to speak for a few minutes. Colonel Simmons, kind of back over to you, and thanks to ATA.
Okay, so pop out your 2-minute warning for starting question and answer, right? So you kind of know where we're at. So you can't be sitting in the wing commander's chair without trying to give people something to do, right? And so my next couple of comments are really for the active duty folks in the military, the uniform wearers, of, hey, what can I really do in the short term and long term to really try to help these kinds of relationships? Is one, create opportunities, right? Create an opportunity that you can happen to run into your honorary commander, have them come to your spaces, have whether it's a dinner, a phone call, an informational briefing. How do you start that relationship? Do not expect that relationship starts with them calling you, right? That they're just as scared to talk to you as you are to them. And so just be the person that reaches out. I know personally all the wing commanders in the MAF, right? These are all my friends, people that I have grown up with. All of your wing commanders know how to do this, right? They are fantastic at it. So as you're looking for a mentorship opportunity with your wing commanders, this is one to bring up. Hey, how do I do this? Right. And then maybe you can actually get to a point where it's just routine. This is just the way that there are events throughout the year that everybody knows this is where we're going to be able to interact. This is where we're going to be able to do that. I know Dover has a state of the base that uses this type of a venue. We had one at Travis for the first time recently. I know that Altus has venues like this, and so they exist. We just need to be able to engage. So with that, I'll pass it over to Popeye for our first sets of questions, and I think we got about 25 minutes or so to be able to run through these. And I am fully comfortable with awkward silence.
Oh, there's no awkward silence here, and great Mandalorian reference to This Is the Way. So very nicely done there. I wouldn't expect anything less. The first question is, can the civic leaders, and we'll start with you, Sandy, share some insight into what makes a good versus a bad relationship between a military and a civilian community? I know places I've moved, some communities have been far more welcoming than others. How do you make that relationship happen?
You can take it all. We'll sit back.
I think that goes with personalities. I don't think everybody leans into relationship building. So I go back to what Colonel Simmons mentioned. I think within your leadership cultivation, these type of forums are the place to get after some tricky subjects. How do you inspire someone to be more inclined to interact with people, particularly the lexicon? Man, the Air Force, you gotta figure out that we don't know that lexicon. So a lot of what you say goes, psh, and we've got to figure that out. And it's like the city manager versus the mayor versus the whatnot. But you all talk in that, like, so starts with understanding each other. And I think if we have more forums, I'll give you a great example of where you can meet more civics and get that perspective. Association of Defense Community. It's a national, nonprofit org that serves to foster kind of that awareness. And they do installation forums a couple times a year. There's a DC, the summit for it. But this is where lawmakers, policymakers, Air Force is really good about coming, but we need to have that as part of your leadership development. That way, when you get to a base, you have a go-to, you have an understanding of how to kind of stack up that relationship value. I hope that's answering a little bit for you, Alex.
Yeah, Dana, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that there's just if there hasn't been that connection made, I just think it's a matter of the outreach. I really feel that we've traveled around and we've met so many amazing communities around your bases, and so many tremendous community leaders who are really excited to be part of what you do. And so I just think that maybe it's a matter of just making those connections, reaching out, and letting the community know that they're welcome, because like we have said many times here, the community tends to be really afraid to do that interaction and feel that they're not fully informed on how to appropriately communicate with the military. So sometimes it's an educational thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine why they'd be afraid driving by and seeing armed gate guards and things like that. We're not exactly the most approachable organization. So the next question is from Shalina, and she wants to know, what advice can you offer commanders to foster diversity and inclusion within your military and civilian community? She adds, thanks for what you do.
All right, you broke up for just 1 second. Just read the question one more time. I think I caught it.
Absolutely. Yeah. What advice can you offer commanders to foster diversity and inclusion within your military and civilian communities?
How about let's just start with being a good person, right? How about we just start there, right? And that there's no idea that is not welcomed into your room, and that there's no culture that you're not willing to have conversations with. How about we just start there, and then I'll go back to creating an opportunity, right? Like if you listen to the chief and listen to some of our other senior leaders, I mean, some of this has to do with opportunity, and whether it's diversity and inclusion of skin color or sexual orientation. Sometimes it's really diversity of thought, where you grew up, how you did those things, looking for someone who doesn't look like you, to kind of be a part of your inner circle of decision makers. And honestly, don't be afraid, right? Like, all of us have been trained to lead organizations, right? And have our challenges, have our assumptions challenged, right? Like that is part of our military culture. I think that D&I, all of that really does is enhance it a little bit more. But, for me as the wing commander, what I try to do is just try to foster a place that I trust the folks around me that they're going to do their best to put the best people in the best position at the best time, and let that honestly play itself out. And so I think that's kind of the best from a military point of view, how we could do that.
Can I add something? This is a big topic right now nationally, and I think you will see in the next few months a lot more movement from the cross-pollination of the community and the installation. It goes back to that the fence line has got to be more fluid, and we have to talk to each other about this because your airmen are living in the communities. The base housing is restricted by its amount, and people want to be part of a community. So it's important that we get it right and that we're mirroring good policy in our local communities as well as on the installation. So I think you'll be hearing a lot more about it. Our eyeballs are on this, and we want to step up. There are a lot of communities that have God, there's so many smart people around this country that are doing some amazing initiatives, and we want to emulate that and step up here. So I think you'll see a lot more to that.
Dana, you want to try to add anything to that one from the East Coast?
There's so much going on as far as the local businesses and organizations with regard to the same topic. So maybe there would be some learning to have happen between what organizations are doing to become more integrated with diversity and inclusion, as well as the military. So, maybe a conversation between the two we could help each other.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I'll just chime in here too, because I couldn't agree with you more, Colonel Simmons, on that about being a good person. And I used to always go by the treat other people the way you want to be treated thing. And one of my chaplain students brought out a good point to me, and he goes, "That's not what you do." And I was kind of offended at first. And he goes, "You don't live by the golden rule." He goes, "You're doing the platinum rule." And the platinum rule is to treat other people the way they want to be treated and not mirror imaging your ideals and your experiences on them and treating them the way they want to be treated. And that's really a big part of this diversity and inclusion is don't think that they were brought up the same way as you and had the same experiences, because you could be trying to do something great and something that you want, and it totally falls flat on its face because you don't understand that person or their experiences or that culture. So it's really a huge part, like you said, of just being a good person.
But before we go to the next question, can I say something I thought I'd never say ever?
Yes.
I agree with Popeye.
Yeah, write that down. Absolutely, write that down. The next question we have is from Kim Huth, and it's in 2020, the Air Force released a study rating education, license reciprocity around each installation for military families. I support the area surrounding Scott Air Force Base and would be interested in hearing what you've done to understand and affect the results, and would you be interested in partnering with their organization up at Scott?
Yeah, so let me start with Kim Huth. You're fabulous. You were fabulous on active duty, and I know what you're doing there in St. Clair County and all the things at Scott. And so the answer to your last question is that yes, we will partner immediately, if not sooner, with any of the things that you're trying to get after. So I've had the luxury now of twice being a wing commander and having to work this specific issue in two different contexts of our country, one in Oklahoma and one in California. And so the first thing I'll say is that context matters. Right? Like where are you trying to solve the problem, and what are those potential barriers to entry in those places, right? And so, to be fair, we were able to get license reciprocity for spouses in Oklahoma relatively quickly, utilizing some of the avenues that we talked about before, using our civic leaders who had access to legislatures, and honestly, the timing of how fast things can happen in different state legislatures all matter in how fast you could solve things. Here in California, license reciprocity, specifically for our medical and our teachers, we were well on our way. There was a vehicle in legislature, lots of support, everybody's excited, and then this weird thing called COVID happened. and full breaks to almost any legislation that would kind of get after this that's not COVID related. And the hurt feelings reports happen immediately because we kind of like drowned out. But if the idea is good enough, right, and it helps enough airmen, and you can tell the story the right way, there's an avenue to get to yes. And so that's kind of where we're attacking this problem again in California. And so what we did here is that we actually got all 6 Air Force installations in California. All 6 wing commanders signed a letter specifically talking about how important license reciprocity was and asking our state legislatures to support. And then, honestly, I turned it over to Sandy. So, Sandy, you can take it from there.
Yeah, I want to thank you for this question, because this is one of the other preeminent issues that we're all facing. And California is California. We're big, we're complex. And what I have so appreciated is that Colonel Simmons and his team stepped up and articulated this. So often, military folks are reticent to really show an expression of need. And I understand there's a lot of rules on being good stewards of that trust, but we are grateful for that leadership to do that. And I expect really good things out of California this year, bar earthquakes, bar fires, bar anything legislatively that gets in our way. We're going to come out with a more green light on this, but I did want to lend for Scott Air Force Base in particular. You have a wicked smart civic leader there by the name of Dr. Rhonda Sauget. And she is on top of this, and she is a leader in your state. So get to her. She's paving the way. I think Scott Air Force Base is in extremely good hands.
Dana, anything to add?
Pop out by just saying Kim Who's name. We worked at Transcom, and she was fantastic. And so my day's already better just because you said her name.
Outstanding. Dana, anything to add quickly?
I was going to mention Rhonda as well. She is amazing. And this is a good example of how the civic leaders have benefited from knowing each other across the country, because Rhonda taught us a tremendous amount about how to move forward with that reciprocity mission. So I think that's incredibly valuable that we're able to all talk to each other.
All right, Dana, I'm going to put the next question straight back to you, so you're not always playing second fiddle, but it's an anonymous question, and it's please address the BAH and rising regional housing and rental costs in your area. How do your communities help airmen and service members find affordable housing?
That's interesting. So we have a lot of realtors who are involved with our organizations and prominent within our chambers. Colonel Simmons just mentioned that. And I know that they are diligent in communicating and making information available as far as what kind of special offers they have and opportunities they have for military and veterans. We have more veterans in this region than I believe anywhere across the country. We are very, very big military community here. So, I mean, specifics, it's not my wheelhouse. I don't have an expertise on that. But one of the great things about how we are able to connect is that we have those people in the wings that are there to be directed to speak with people who need help with those sorts of things.
All right, how about our folks at Travis?
Yeah, I'm going to give this one to Joe, because this kind of dives into kind of what the executive director can help do.
Yeah, thanks. Similar to what Dana said, I mean, this is really where my relationships with folks downtown, whether it's municipal government, state and federal government entities, and then just relationships like with Sandy. That's where communication early and often, developing credibility and just being able to pick up the phone. That's critical to these things, especially passing these things in a timely manner, because every year things happen. I mean, we deal with affordable housing, and I mean, at Travis Air Force Base, the cost of living is extremely high, and it's very difficult. We have a lack of inventory for housing, so it's very difficult to find rentals, and it's almost impossible to buy a home. So those are conversations that we continue to have at the municipal government side here locally, but also that we try to move up at the state level.
Yeah, and Papa, I'll just add, the Air Force they've recognized this problem. It's not new, right? BAH rates and housing is not new. But I will say what I've seen in the 6 years that I've been paying attention to this conversation, the appetite at the Department of Defense level to be able to relook BAH rates, they actually will have those conversations sooner than they used to. It used to be wait till next January, right? And I know that there are multiple instances where whether it was an oil fracking issue that shot up rates as the oil boom kind of happens in parts of the country, or what happened to Tyndall, God forbid, and changed the rental market at Tyndall. The DoD actually looks at this a little bit faster than they have in the past and have made equitable changes specifically for junior enlisted. That's where we've seen the most movement in the dollar values for those young families of our junior enlisted. That as a specific point.
Excellent. I'm going to keep it right with you, Travis. Ms. Cheryl Clark has 2 questions. What kind of engagement events have your bases been doing for honorary commanders during COVID? And can you share details on the Honorary Commander Mentorship Council specifically at Travis?
Okay, so the short answer, not nearly as much as anybody would want, right? You could argue that from March of last year, when Jeff Nelson still had the seat at Travis, we didn't have much. We were able to kind of sneak in the changes of command and some of those events to try to keep some battle rhythm of our key civics still being able to be on base. As in the fall, when we kind of had the downturn, a little bit of COVID here on the West Coast, we were able to host very small, I would use the word intimate settings on the installation at the squadron level, but not really at the wing level. As we got into the winter, the second wave, and if you live in California, the stay home orders and the like, even if you thought you could do it safely, optically, it really wasn't a thing that you could really do. So we spent most of our time on Zoom calls and things like we're doing right now to be able to stay connected. But as we saw the COVID starts to do its downturn, we had our state of the base here at Travis, which we are utilizing as kind of the kickoff to the new season of honorary commanders, and asking honorary commanders who've been this for the last year to just go ahead and sign up again, right? So we can attempt to give them the experience that we want to be able to. But the biggest thing I will say is that we haven't given up. We continue to try to get after that. And so, Stanley, please.
I just want to add that it's all about leadership making this a priority. Man, we love this. We covet it. So the more the merrier. And it's up to leadership to have systems in place that can make this continuity flow and grow. And our PA team, Best Unit Award, Outstanding Unit Award for the Air Force, they deserve all the accolades because this is an important program to them, because leadership blesses it. And so it's thriving and people are engaged. It's all about that.
Yeah. And can you repeat the question for the Mentorship Council, Popeye?
Just how does it work? What's it doing?
Yeah. So basically, there's 5 senior honorary commanders that have been in the program over the course of the years that basically have volunteered to take their own personal time and sit down and they meet typically either once a month or once a quarter, usually for a working lunch. And they actually chart out, hey, what are the things that we can start looking at specifically in COVID? That's they've gotten together throughout COVID, whether it's via Zoom or like a lunch and learn where they're socially distanced with our PA team. To actually talk about, hey, what do we need to do to kind of help our new honorary commanders that have been only honorary commanders in this time of COVID? How do we make them understand that there's still a key process, keep them engaged, and help them still learn about the Air Force so that they want to continue? And really the way that this council works is we want to grow the next crop of kind of the mentorship council by the current crop of honorary commanders. We want them to stay as honoraries, want to be in the program and be engaged, to be alumni, to take, it really turns into not just, a council of 5, but when you graduate as an honorary commander, you can kind of be a big brother, big sister, a mentor to the new folks that are coming in and or to the commanders. One of the things as an honorary commander, I was a commander and an honorary commander. When I was able to be an honorary commander, my perspective was so much different. How I engaged with my commander on a day-to-day basis, a weekly basis, was so much different. And I wanted to make sure that my commander, I wasn't just receiving things from the Air Force side, but as an honorary, I was able to give back and bring them outside of the fence, get them immersed in what was happening downtown and those types of things. And until you've spent a year or two as an honorary commander, you don't really have the comfort level or the understanding. You're still learning what the Air Force is, who your commander is, what their unit's about. So on the back end of that, that's really where the Mentorship Council can actually help the active duty commanders also in a great way.
Great, thanks for that answer. The next one should be a pretty quick one, but it's another anonymous question. Do your civic leaders have special passes that allow them access to the base, or do they have to process through entry control every time?
No, we actually do have special passes, right? Obviously, we do all the great vetting that you would expect any installation to be able to do, but we actually do get them ID cards, DBIDs type cards to be able to have access on and off the installation for the time that they're an honorary commander.
All right, moving on to the next question. And this one's for Dana. If you could talk at all about, in your opinion or in what you've seen, are your BAH rates keeping up with rising housing prices?
Once again, that is not my expertise. I was much better having the conversation about the engagement with the civic leaders, because that's something that I'm at the helm of. Once again, I will pass that back to Sandy, who probably has a great answer for that question.
Us being aware of, thank you, Dana. I will say this, us being aware of your rates and having the courage to have those conversations with our local governments is what's essential that we do. And if McGuire or a high cost state like California are impediments, we have to know that, and we have to get in and understand how those rates are defined. And I know a former Air Force secretary tried to raise some of those rates. It's complicated and it's complex, but it's coming to the table and tackling those hard issues together, I think is what's important, and being aware. And local government people change just like military people do. So you have to have that continuity. It's all about shared trust and getting after the cultural problems, getting after the hard stuff.
Yeah, Papa, let me try to give one perspective real quick on this one. Is that,
yeah.
Here's what we don't get to choose. We don't get to choose what the Department of Defense decides is the metric for what you should be able to get downtown, right? And so I'll use an example. A senior airman married with one child is expected to be able to rent a 2-bedroom apartment, not a 4-bedroom house with a garage and all those things, right? And so I didn't say that was right. I wasn't trying to advocate one way or the other, but what DOD's expectation of what the market should be able to provide and what's actually on the market generally don't coincide, right? It's generally not the same. And so that's why I talked about specific, if you get in a situation where a market is saturated, that the avenues to be able to get at the Department of Defense is quicker than waiting till next year, right? And sometimes we don't win. Right. Sometimes we don't win. I lost one at Vance. We won one at Dover. And so it's really kind of the market has to by definition drive this conversation.
But we want to provide that, whatever that supply is. So we got to have the heads up that it's needed and know at that time, because it takes time to build it. But we want to create that product.
Vacaville literally developed 3 separate 2- and 3-bedroom type of apartment complexes specifically for this need, and then specifically gives military rates accordingly. Now, that took 5 years, right? That didn't happen yesterday, but that need was happening, and the community actually responded.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting a little close on time, but we do have questions flowing in. As everyone's calendar, let us keep going for a couple extra minutes.
I'm good.
Okay, great. The next question is, have you seen a change in support with the consolidation of bases, reducing the number of commanders and organizations that need to be in more of a Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst piece? But I think you can both talk to that. So Dana, you want to start with that?
If you could just say the beginning of that again. Do we see a consolidation? Through the consolidation, do we see what?
a change in the support from the community, since there's less organizations to get with and less honorary commanders with the consolidations?
So actually, it's grown tremendously. So before the bases were merged, a really interesting thing here is that this honorary commander program, I don't know if a lot of people in the Air Force realize, but this is not something that has an equivalent in the Army and the Navy. The honorary commander program is something that the Air Force has and pretty exclusively. So when the bases merged, in our case, the Ocean County side, which is the east side of the base, was mostly geared toward the Navy installation there, which is Lakehurst. And the Navy personnel there, for the most part, there were a lot of civilians. So it's a very, very different dynamic over there. A lot of jobs, a lot of high-paying jobs, very important to the community, but not a lot of interaction because it's just not the culture. So when the bases merged, it was a fascinating thing how the Air Force, McGuire, on the west side of the base, came out and started engaging more and doing more aggressive outreach with the community out here in Ocean County and explaining to us, look, we need this connection. We need these civilians. We need honorary commanders. And that was when I was able to start learning about the programs and how to get involved. So the building of organizations became stronger and greater because now with the Joint Base and the Air Force at the helm being so community relationship oriented, there was more of a drive toward organizing military support and more honorary commanders getting involved and a broader reach in the community. So very interesting what the Air Force dynamic did as a result of the joint basing.
Travis, do you have anything to add?
Now you're on.
If I can just take a quick moment to share that I think you all have tremendous demands on your time, and it's incumbent upon us to, as a collective community, to try to be as united in that outreach as we can. We've got bells going on, but I think that's the message I want. We know how busy and you all are and the tremendous demands on your time. So I think it's up to us to really get our collective voices shared together on this outreach and interfacing.
Hey, if anybody wants to know, ad hoc messages out, AFPAS for everybody. Where's everybody in Oklahoma, Texas? All right, so all is at home. It's all about the winter storms.
Excellent. So one more question for Travis. Can you give us a little bit more info about the Albertson donation to your base supporting programs?
No.
Actually, no. And if someone would like to tell me more about it, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's got a lot of likes, and someone actually asked us specifically to ask that, and I hadn't heard of it either. So I was hoping you had some insight.
So if someone, Papa, if somebody specifically asked that question that is not ringing an immediate bell, give me their contact information, and we'll get back to them with an answer.
Yeah, so please hit me up with a private message, and we will get back with you an answer because it is an anonymous question, so I don't have that answer real handy right now. So I'm just going to scan through here and see if there's any more questions. And I think that actually fills out most of the questions that we have. So I would like to thank our panel for their time. This has been outstanding, exceeded all of my expectations, and the bar was pretty high. Having served with and worked with quite a few of the members of the panel, I knew how outstanding they were, and they exceeded even my expectations. So I'll turn it over to Travis for closing remarks, then we'll go back to Dana, and then we'll call it a day.
Miss Dana, Papa, if it's okay, I'll let Miss Dana go first. Is that okay? Go ahead.
Absolutely, sir. I just want to say one more time that the Honorary Commander Program has been a very enriching experience, and civic leaders are here. So I really hope that, we can have more discussions like this. As Sandy said, it's not something that we've really seen in this forum before, and I think that there are so many more things that we can share. This was a lot to try to condense into one conversation. So I look forward to continuing to serve you all as best that I can, and to sharing your story and gaining more support as much as possible. Thanks so much to all of you. Thank you, Colonel Simmons.
All right, Joe, please.
Well, just thanks to ATA and the team. Dana, it's great to get to be with you today. Also, awesome questions. You know, this is all about people and relationships, right? And I'm very grateful in this role as executive director to be able to have a small part in it. But really, this takes deliberate effort, as Sandy kind of brought up, and Colonel Simmons and Dana. To do this right, it's going to take a lot of effort, and it takes continuity and relationships. And I think we're getting after it here at Travis. Got a really good model, and grateful to be a part of serving our airmen in our community. So thanks for that.
Sandy.
My motto is Carpe Diem. I absolutely love this forum. And Alex Pop, I thank you for doing this. And it's a first. I hope there's many, many more. And go ATA, go Air Force.
All right, and I'll close with just 3 small things, right? So if you're trying to figure out what do I do with this, I think you just need to invest your time and your talents on both the military side and the civilian side. If you'll make the commitment to invest that, I think all goodness can come of that. Don't be afraid to engage on either side, for the civilians who don't know how to knock on the door to come on the base, or for us who don't really know how to talk to a city planner. Just having that first phone call, I think you'll find some goodness there. And then lastly, to our civic leaders who are on this phone call, please, please, please continue to advocate for us. You have a voice that many of us can't say. And so as often as we can get our messages aligned, I think that there's no badness for our airmen. And so when we can do that, I think it's awesome. So Papa, thanks for having the time and hosting this. It looked like technologically this was able to work. For those online that have feedback, I know all 4 of us would love to hear what you thought of this. And with that, goodbye from Travis and McGuire.
Awesome. Thanks again so much, everybody. ATA can't do our mission of professional development and taking care of our mobility airmen without our civic partners and our bases. So we, again, appreciate those relationships. We have coming up on the 5th of March, we have Major General Kenneth Bibb joining us for Leadership, the 18th Air Force Perspective. So please make sure that you add that onto your calendar. Should be another great event. I'm sure you'll get a really candid and honest answers from General Bibb. He is as forthright as they come, and he'll answer whatever you want to ask. So we're really looking forward to that section. The views expressed in this presentation are those of the speaker and do not reflect the official policy or position of the U.S. Air Force, the Department of Defense, the United States government, or the Airlift Tanker Association. Please send comments and suggestions for future topics and guests to us at atalink.org. Again, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you on the 5th.